Welcome in. This is season 5. This is episode number 34 of the Outlap F1 podcast. We are part of the Ship It Studios podcast network, and you had to wait a little bit for it, but it's all good. It's the 2023 Qatar GP race review. You've got Andy, and Iron Man streak is still going, and tonight is a testament to that. I'm along with Cody tonight. It is good to see you, sir. I love the hat you're wearing. Coincidentally, I got a chance to just watch the Hawks actually win their first game of the year with their new shiny draft pick, Mr. Bedard. But that's not why everybody's here. But anyway, how you doing anyway?
I'm doing great. The Cubs hats are relegated to the back of the closet until further notice. Supporting a team that can hopefully actually do something by the end of the season. And long weekend filled with golf, Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, at this point, doing F1 podcast is like taking a break. It feels great.
Well, relax, sit down, relax, strap it in. We will and we will go through what was a very odd weekend for a lot of reasons. But anyway, we'll get into all that in just a little bit. So if you're new to our show, welcome. As David Croft would say, welcome along. You can find us on Twitter, still calling it that, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle. You can see it in our link tree in our show notes. If you're on YouTube and you like what you're seeing and you like what you're hearing, do us a solid, click the like and the subscribe button. If you're on your favorite podcasting app, you can click the 5-star button, specifically Apple Podcasts or Spotify, although there are a number of others that we're on. It just helps us come up a little bit better in search results, gets our content to you that much quicker, and we would appreciate it if you are so inclined. You can email the show, chatnow@outlapf1.com will take you there. You can peruse the website, www.outlapf1.com takes you there. As a reminder, we do have people who support us monetarily and continue to do so. So we are eternally grateful for Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of what we call the hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, you can see our link in our show notes, $1, $5, whatever you'd like to do. All goes into making the show better. All goes into new equipment, upgrading the equipment we already have. Mr. Cody is sporting a new microphone tonight, fueled by your donations. So thank you very much to everybody who helps to contribute to make the show better. Hopefully Cody is coming in, like they say, 5x5 and crystal clear HD. If you want to go check out the good folks at Manscaped, Christmas is coming a little bit quicker than we all probably would like. You can check out their stuff and get 20% off and free shipping with our code OUTLAP. That's OUTLAP, all one word to take you there. And our final sponsor, the F1Guy.com, our buddy Vincenzo Landino. He has a shirt line. It's F1 quality merch at not necessarily the F1 quality price. And as someone who has a lot of F1 merch, I can tell you the prices are a little crazy. So go ahead and check that out. He's got some really good stuff if you are so inclined as well. All right. Now that the particulars are out of the way, we will start with the headline of the day. Cody, what'd you think of this weekend? What a crazy, weird, twisty-turny show it was.
My headline of the day is, what a farce of a race weekend. And Max still won, so we didn't even get anything there. Although we did get the Oscar Piastri sprint win, which was very welcome, and congrats to Oscar on that. But yeah, so many levels of this weekend being a farce with the tire limitations, with the tires being destroyed by the curbs, with last-minute changes to the track limits, with the extraordinary amount of track limit violations, the extreme heat that the drivers drove through. It was nuts, and not in a great way.
Yeah, my headline is that this whole weekend kind of felt a lot like an IndyCar weekend. It's the weekend where F1 went totally IndyCar. Because the race watch felt a lot like an IndyCar, because most IndyCar races on the road course are 2 or 3 stops, with everybody having to do the 3 stops. That's kind of what it felt like. And it almost felt like if you wanted to see what a race would look like with the dreaded, I hate to say it, refueling, this is kind of what it would look like, because you'd have everybody kind of within the same range, but not necessarily a whole lot of open strategy. So there wasn't a whole lot you could really do. It was really, what did you have left in your tire fuel, for lack of a better word, what was left, and you could use what you had. And then once it was gone, they made you pit. So the good news is everybody did get through it. Some came through it better than others in terms of points, and some got through it better than others in terms of the physicality, which is another theme and story that we will be covering as we get into this. But like I said, at least overall, we got the show in. They got it done. There's a lot of recommendations for the future that I think I can suspect are going to happen, and they're probably going to happen. And I don't think we're going to see Qatar in October probably ever again after this. They're probably going to have to do some tweaking to the calendar because, this just, I don't think it felt very much like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. But anyway, we will get into all that. And of course, it was a sprint weekend, so we had even more craziness, because that's what a sprint weekend gives you, which is artificial craziness. But all the way back on Friday, which now feels like a lifetime ago, we had the qualifying session while I was trying to do various things for my job. Qualifying was going on, and I was annoyed because of the results and because of everything. But anyway, we will take you through that very quickly. So our Friday for the grid on Sunday qualifying featured, all right, going out in P20 was the Alfa Romeo of Zhao Guanyu. P19 was Kevin Magnussen. P18 was Liam Lawson. P17, Lance Stroll. We got to talk about him. P16 just missing out on advancing, being knocked out, I think, ultimately by his teammate, was the Williams of Logan Sargent. P15 was Nico Hulkenberg. P14 was Alex Albon. Good showing for Williams there. P13 was Sergio Perez. P12, this was a surprise, Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. P11, Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. P10, not setting a lap time because both of his flying laps were deleted, especially at the end. That was Lando Norris. P9 was Valtteri Bottas. P8, Esteban Ocon. P7 was Pierre Gasly. P6, even though his final lap time also deleted, Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. P5 was Charles Leclerc. P4 was Fernando Alonso, the benefactor of both of those McLaren deletions. P3, Lewis Hamilton. P2, George Russell. And with a lap time of 1:23.778, he is Thanos. He's inevitable. Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. All right. So thoughts on the traditional qualifying for the Sunday race, not the Saturday thing.
Man, lots of issues, as we saw throughout the entire weekend. Lots of issues with track limits and getting lap times deleted. And, of course, the typical F1 flair of not knowing where anyone was actually going to start by the time they started doing the interviews for qualifying. I believe, was it in the regular qualifying that they were saying Oscar Piastri was going to be starting higher up, and then they ended up getting the time penalty or something?
Yeah. It was both. So in a normal qualifying, you end up, if somebody goes off for track limits, that lap is almost instantly gone. You can watch it on the timing. You can see the fall. It happens. Little message comes up, car, whatever, lap time deleted, track limits. That happened quite fine in Q1 and Q2. You get to Q3, and in the first runs, that was still happening. And then we get to the end, the final laps, the crescendo, the part of the show that you would want to get the most right. And now they had Lando Norris on the main feed, and you could see where he does go off. And let's be honest, he was off. The commentator said it right away. I knew it right away. But I'm watching the timing, and he finishes his lap, and his lap goes up to P2. And I'm like, all right, where's the drop? Where's the drop? I'm waiting for the drop. And he's continuing to go around on his cooldown lap. Nobody's talking to him on his team radio because they're waiting for the drop. We're all waiting for the drop. No drop. He gets all the way around. He gets out of the car. Still no drop. He gets out. He starts shaking hands with Max and George. Still no drop. Then finally, the drop happens. Lando Norris's lap time has been deleted. Okay, we all knew that. So they wheel his McLaren out of the top 3 and into Parc Fermé. And they wheel into the top 3 Oscar Piastri's McLaren because it looked like his time, which was originally good enough for P4, would now be promoted to P3. And now they start the traditional qualifying interviews, and they start with the third place finisher. Meanwhile, they're taking pictures of the top 3, all the photos and all the hop and circumstance that's going on. And they get midway through the interview, and poor Naomi Schiff, who they did not do any favors to, gets through the entire thing and has to tell Oscar live, I'm sorry, Oscar, I'm hearing in my ear your lap time has been deleted. And so now they have to wheel the other McLaren out of the top 3, bring in Hamilton. But by this time, the interviews are over, and ESPN, oh, by the way, has also gone back to whatever their football pregame programming has now been. So, yeah, if you were in the U.S., you saw something, and then it wasn't true. So great production right there. I don't understand what took so long. Not a good look. Makes everybody confused. Made me confused. So we ended up, Lando's both times gets deleted. Oscar's second lap gets deleted, so he gets relegated to P6. Lando gets relegated to P10. And now we at least have a grid for Sunday. But that was the story of the weirdness, the first weird part of the Qatar weekend, because trust me, there is more coming.
Farce number 1.
Yes.
Also, a couple other blurbs on qualifying here. I believe Charles Leclerc looked like he was driving like a madman throughout qualifying there. Definitely all over the track, messing with other people's laps. Lance Stroll, as everyone probably has seen, was very unhappy with his performance in qualifying, and got out of the car, looked very mad, appeared to have possibly shoved, I believe, his personal trainer just off camera. Not a good look for him. A lot of people are saying that he looks like he is starting to crumble under the pressure of, his performance or lack thereof, compared to Fernando Alonso. I mean, we hear about it. Seems like every race weekend this year. That is Lance Stroll going to be coming back? Could Lance Stroll ever possibly lose his streak when his dad owns the team? Yeah, he's not having a good time. And his one-word answers during the interview didn't really help his case either.
No. Number one, no, they didn't. And two, to kind of set the stage as to what happened with that, you have to understand now there's been an FIA clampdown of whenever you get eliminated, Q1, Q2, the FIA wants the driver to be visible until they get to the scales, okay? Because the first thing they have to do is they have to go get weighed. And they don't want the drivers going anywhere where the cameras can't see them in case they try to do something funny with the weight. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Like what? Or what?
I don't know. You can game this however you want, but that's... So what his trainer was doing, first of all, Lance comes back into the garage. He flips the steering wheel. Now, we've seen other drivers do that. That's an expensive-ass steering wheel. You might not want to, chuck it into the ground like that. But, okay, that neither being here nor there. I've seen other drivers do that. His trainer is pointing at him, and it looks like he's wagging his finger. He's not wagging his finger at him in anger. What he's telling Lance to do is, no. You can't come back through the back to go get weighed. You have to go out the front. So he's pointing him to the front of the garage. Lance didn't want to hear any of that. He just wanted to go into the back and go sulk. And his trainer's trying to tell him, no, they're going to disqualify you unless you, and then while he's saying disqualify, I think that's when the shove happens. And Lance has apologized. Apparently, according to the team's releases, everything is okay. They kind of sort of swept it under the rug, but that's unacceptable behavior. I'm sorry. Good, bad, or indifferent, no matter how pissed you are. I mean, I get pissed at things, and sometimes I slam my fist on a desk a la Toto Wolff, but I don't do that in the workplace. I don't ever put my hands on another coworker or do anything like that, because that's really what we're talking about here. That is an employee versus an employee. And
I shoved someone at the office, and I'm in deep shit, man.
Yeah, I mean that's an HR nightmare right there. I mean that's a write up and a disciplinary hearing, and like even in a sporting context, if it's any other team, you get one of those tweets that just says team statement. He's been fined. We're putting the matter behind us. Whatever. You can't just say it didn't happen, or you can't just say it's all good, because that's bad. So, Cody, any other thoughts on it other than anything I've said?
No, I think we covered just about everything. It's good to see the Mercedes qualifying close to the front, even though they had a little help from lap deletions. But that was the only qualifying that I watched. I was an hour late to it too, because I am not used to it being on, in the middle of the workday. So next thing I know, I'm looking at the clock. It's 2:30, and I'm like, shit. But
well,
I ended up watching that one. Sprint shootout. I missed. I only caught the highlights on that one.
Okay. Well, we will rack that up. So that was the Friday running. Now, what happened after the Friday running was Pirelli does this customary look at the tires, and they throw them under a microscope, and they just want to make sure everything is on the up and up and up. So what you had here in Qatar was 3 really bad factors if you're a tire guru. It was hot as hell. It was muggy as hell. You had new surface, which had sand that was sticking to everything. And you had these lovely pyramid curves that had been used here before. And we even talked about it in our preview. What was the story of the last race here? Tires going poof near the end of that race for 3 different drivers. So Pirelli runs their analysis and looks, and apparently where the top of the tire meets the sidewall, there was some sort of a microscopic stretching of the connection between the two. And the fear was that if we just let this go, and we let these drivers go on this pyramid curve in this weather with all these conditions, at some point, and we can't tell when, one of these tires is going to fail. We're pretty sure over the course, if we run this tire to where we say the grip is going to go off, based on our analysis, we think one of these tires is going to fail. This is a problem. And if you were in the era of having 2 tire suppliers, guess what we would have had? We would have had Indianapolis 2005 all over again. Because we only had 1 tire supplier, they're able to then change the track, which they did Saturday morning. And we got, and I love this term, an extra familiarization session for the drivers to go out 10 minutes before the sprint shootout. Which had no live timing, which was hilarious. It had no live timing. It had no sectors. It had no nothing. I couldn't tell who was doing what other than looking at onboards and going, okay, that looks like a decent lap, or that looked like a bad lap. I can't tell. So I don't know who did what in the familiarization session, other than nobody went off track. That was the good news. Nobody crashed. Nobody binned it. So because of that, we didn't know going into Sunday. Because they discovered this problem, they changed the track. They're like, okay, we're going to use the sprint to look at the tire life to see, do we have an issue for Sunday? They decided, whether out of an abundance of caution or whatever, that they did. And so the rule then for Sunday was maximum lap stint 21 laps? 18 laps. 18 laps.
18 laps for the tire life, which, as we'll get to in the race, led to very confusing stints because everyone had different tire lives on the dirt. So existing tire usage. So
yes, 18 really laps per set, regardless of what you did, and that got handed to everybody 10 o'clock Sunday morning on a race that starts at 2. So yeah. So anyway, before we get there, we'll come back to there. We have the little sprint, which happens in the middle, which has its own qualifying sessions. So the sprint shootout, which happened Saturday morning, features... I can actually get the sound to do it again. All right. not setting a lap time because his 2 flying laps were deleted. Logan Sargent in the Williams. He is technically not classified in P20. P19, Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. P18, Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. P17, Alex Albon in the Williams. P16, Lance Stroll. Both qualifying sessions not out of Q1. Ow. P15, Joe Granu. P14, Liam Lawson. P13 was Valtteri Bottas. P12, shocker here, Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. P11, Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. P10 was Esteban Ocon in the other Alpine. P9, Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. His lap times were also deleted. Ocon's lap times deleted. No time for either of them. P8, Sergio Checo Perez. P7, Nico Hulkenberg. Good showing for Haas, at least in qualifying. P6, Charles Leclerc. P5 was Carlos Sainz. P4 was George Russell. P3, Max Verstappen. Hello. That opens the door for P2, Lando Norris in the McLaren. And P1, the start of the coming out party, Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren. Wow. Whoops. Now the music starts. Oh, wow. Well, I completely botched that up. We'll put that one in the blooper reel for sure. But I know you probably didn't get a chance to see it live, but thoughts on the sprint shootout?
It's always exciting this year to see anyone other than Max start from P1. And Oscar Piastri putting in a great lap time to take that P1 spot. And it was really, at least from what I saw from the highlight reels, it seemed very cool because Max came across the line and, didn't even pull up to P1 for anyone to go past him. So he wasn't even going to be on, perspective pole. And it was up to Lando to see if he could beat his teammate. And I could feel you probably gunning for him. But he looked like he blew it right at the end of the lap and went really wide. And that pretty much handed it just like straight to Oscar. So, very, very exciting to see Piastri continuing to succeed under the pressure of being a rookie and now what is a very, very well performing McLaren. It was a good sprint shootout for the McLarens and turned out to be a great weekend overall for them.
Yeah, I mean, this was probably where they thought they could have been had things gone to plan on Friday. They definitely made the track limits adjustment, both drivers did, and figured out how to at least get that car around to where they could keep it within the white lines. The interesting thing with Max is Max's first flyer in the sprint qualifying 3 gets deleted for track limits. So it was probably a combination of Max not pushing to the nth degree because he doesn't want to start 10th because he can clinch here. So he just needs to get it over the line, which he does. But looking at it on the timing, you could tell Oscar in all 3 sectors had Max by just that little bit of margin. Lando's last flying lap, if he doesn't make the mistake in the last corner, we're probably talking about a flipped order there because he was on for it. But, he goes wide in the last corner, and that was the end of it. So obviously that lap gets deleted, not that it would have mattered anyway, but you end up with this long laundry list of lap times that are deleted. So, and we see 2 of them, Ocon and Alonso, no times because they couldn't keep it within the white line. So the track limits issue, which was a problem before, which was a problem in Friday, continues here on Saturday. So, but again, for my boys in the papaya and silver, what a great showing! What a great showing to see what is possible. Maybe a harbinger of things to come. Who knows? But they were in that session. They were the 2 quickest, and I think it was a deserving result. All right,
I agree.
Oh, okay. Just making sure. All right, so we will move into the sprint itself. I guess I'll play the same quality sound one more time. Let's see if we can do this one more time. All right. So the non-classified finishers, and there were quite a few of them. Liam Lawson, Logan Sargent, Nico Hulkenberg, Sergio Perez, and Esteban Ocon did not finish the sprint. P15, Lance Stroll. P14, Zhao Guanyu. P13, Kevin Magnussen. P12, Charles Leclerc. P11 was Yuki Tsunoda. P10, Valtteri Bottas. P9 was Pierre Gasly. Your points finishers, P8, promoted after, I believe, a track limits violation, Fernando Alonso. P7, Alex Albon. P6, Carlos Sainz. P5 was Lewis Hamilton. P4, George Russell. P3, Lando Norris. P2, Max Verstappen. And it's a non-Red Bull in P1. Have a day, Oscar Piastri. P1 in the McLaren. All right. Cody, big thoughts on the sprint?
Well, the elephant in the room is that Oscar Piastri won. No, they keep tossing around different lingo for it, but he is a Formula One winner. So
Yes.
Congrats to Oscar on that. And he really held his cool throughout that race very well, because he was passed by George Russell at the very start of the sprint on the soft tires, but managed to keep his cool and regain that position as the race came back to him, because, and this was, I think, very telling for the state of the Pirelli tires this weekend, despite the fact that we had 5 non-classified finishers, despite the fact that we had, I believe, 3 safety cars in a less than 20-lap race, about a 20-lap race, something like that, those soft tires still couldn't make it to the end. It was nuts. They just totally dropped off. George Russell was a sitting duck. He was asking the team, I think we should come in and switch out the tires, and they were telling him, no, can't do that. If you come in, our sprint is, pretty much ruined. You just got to try to stick it out. There really wasn't anything he can do to stop Piastri at that point, who was on the medium tires. But yeah, made it look like those softs were not going to go anywhere throughout the entire weekend. And
yeah, the best comparison I can give, I don't know if you remember this, but it was during the COVID year when they went to Portimao, which was a track that they hadn't been to. And Portimao, it was cool. It was exact kind of opposite temperatures, but it was cool. And I remember this race very vividly because it was Carlos Sainz's first time ever leading a Grand Prix in a McLaren. And he gets off, he's on the soft tire, and he rockets off. Like that, at the start of that race, the soft tire was the tire to be on. That's what you wanted for 5 laps. And for 5 amazing laps, Carlos Sainz builds up like a 7-second lead. And then it was like somebody turned a switch off on the softs and a switch on the mediums, and it flipped over. And you watch the pace just drop on Sainz and pick up on everybody else. That's what happened here. Everybody who was on the soft tire got off the line far, far better than anybody on a medium or, God forbid, a hard tire. But it lasted for all of 3 or 4 racing laps. And then the switch went off on the softs, and the switch came on the mediums and the other tire, and it flipped over. And that's exactly what you saw. You saw Russell get out to the lead. The only way that strategy works is if there's no safety car. The safety car probably killed whatever hope he had, because now he has to restart on a soft and try to build a gap, and he just couldn't do it. He was really no farther than like 2 seconds, even though, now look, Oscar had a great weekend. One thing he's got to work on, being P2 on a restart, because George schooled him. George absolutely nailed the start of that restart and was like a 1.5 seconds clear out of DRS range at the end of the first lap after the restart. So, yeah, Oscar's got to learn from that. But it didn't matter. Like, here's the thing. Oscar was on the medium tire, so it didn't matter. He could have been 5 seconds ahead. It wasn't going to matter. So that was great to see Oscar get in. You're watching now Max also come through the field. You're watching Lando, who went down, I think, all the way to P6, come back through the field. Max gets into P2, and, everybody's thinking, oh, poor Oscar. It was fun while it lasted. Here comes Max. The 3 laps after Max gets into P2 were, I think, 3 of Oscar's best laps that I've ever seen him drive. Because that was max pressure. Max was coming. Max wanted to win that sprint, man. That's how he wants to. When he wants to win a world championship, he doesn't want to finish P2. So Max was going full out, and it was one of those purple mini sector laps that he did. But he only got 0.3 on Oscar. And Oscar, I think, had 2.5 seconds. He finishes 1.87 seconds ahead. It was just enough margin, just pushing that car just enough, kept it on track, kept it on the black stuff. No track limits violations for him late that caused any issues. Oscar Piastri meet World beat Oscar Piastri. Like you said, Cody, Formula One, something winner. I don't know what to call it.
Yes, I am sure we will give him the proper title of Grand Prix winner, hopefully in the near future. As far as the rest of the sprint goes, like I said before, a lot of non-classified finishers. Liam Lawson has shown that he is, in fact, a human rookie, and spun out pretty much on his own in the sprint. Didn't have a great look there. And poor Logan Sargent, man. It seems like when it rains, it pours, and he spun out too. And just, later on in the Grand Prix, looked a little better. In the sprint, it was more of the same that we've seen from him, and it feels like he's starting to maybe crumble under the pressure a little bit himself. But I really, really hope that he figures out enough to keep that seat for next year. And then we had a pretty spectacular crash during a three-way fight for position between Nico Hülkenberg, Sergio Perez, and Esteban Ocon. Really wasn't Perez's fault. He was just kind of along for the ride, but still not a great look for him to be not finishing anything. Again, not his fault, but he was kind of in the position for that to happen by starting further back anyway. Any thoughts on the plethora of non-finishers?
Lots of crashes. Some caused, I think, also by the weird track conditions. The fact that it was as warm as it was, I think that definitely catches out Lawson, definitely catches out Sargent. The 3-1, it's racing incident, but 3-1 not going to work there. Nobody wanted to back out of that corner. Nico Hülkenberg ends up in the middle of the sandwich. Maybe you can blame Ocon a little bit. Maybe you can blame Perez a little bit, but it's 3 guys trying to go for a gap. Perez is trying to make up for a not great qualifying performance, and boom, now they're all out. And that crash absolutely clinched the world championship. There it was. That was the moment. Max Verstappen becomes officially donned the 3-time Drivers' World Championship. Drivers' World Champion. He will not actually officially be crowned until, of course, the FIA Gala after the last race of the season. But it is mathematically secured. Max could go off on a bender and come back and still be world champion. So Kimi Räikkönen's got nothing on Max Verstappen going into into the gala there. But it just a mark of the dominance that's been this season. The fact that we're clinching it on a sprint, the fact that we're clinching it with it's still at that point 6 races to go, just goes to show how amazing of a run that guy in that car has done this season. I don't know what else you can do other than tip your cap and just say, hey, this was your year, because it was.
Stellar year for Max. Incredible performance. I mean, statistically could end up still being the single best performance in terms of race wins and percentage of race wins by any driver ever. So it's truly historic. I gotta wonder what the Vegas odds were for Max clinching the title on a sprint. I didn't even consider that when we were making like preseason predictions and stuff. That I guess he could get it at like the Qatar sprint. But
that wouldn't have been in my bingo card. I'll tell you that.
Wasn't, I guess, the most flashy way of clinching as well, because obviously he wanted to win the sprint and he didn't, but not nearly the attendance at the sprint either. So he clinches the title with only, I believe, 100. I believe they were saying like around 30,000 in attendance, as opposed to the Grand Prix itself, which was a sold out crowd of like 120,000. So maybe took a little flash out of the occasion there, but still, maybe he doesn't care at this point. He's got 3 under his belt now, so he knows what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, I think his mindset had always been, I want to clinch as soon as humanly possible to have it done, dusted, and out of the way. So that's pretty much what he did. I mean, in terms of like, it wasn't his greatest performance. It didn't need to be. Once Perez goes out, he either probably saw it on a big screen or, figured it out that, hey, all I need to do is bring it home. And even though he was trying to go, I want to get Piastri, his own engineer was telling him, look, that's not where you should be focusing on. Like, listen to me, buddy. That's not where you need to be focused on. Just bring the car home. So he ends up, clinching that way. But yeah, I mean, full props. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Full props. The guy has been the force this season. So not surprised. All right. So we will now... Yes, we finally get to 40 minutes in. We actually will now start the actual race review. We will go lights out. We will start as we are apt to do. We talked about what the weird tire rule was going to do. The other interesting part of that, which we kind of touched on it a little bit, was the FIA issues this document about 2 hours before the race starts that says this is what everybody's tires age is. So yeah, we're maximum 18. You can't go more than that. And if you use these tires in a different session, those count against your 18 laps. So guys like Max Verstappen or drivers who had extra tires are now suddenly in a very advantageous position to other drivers who had to use those tires to get through all of these qualifying and sprint qualifying and all that other fun stuff. But maybe in the end it didn't matter. I don't know, but we'll take you through. The non-finishers are Carlos Sainz. He gets the dreaded did not start. He had a fuel leak discovered right when the car came out of Parc Fermé. It was buried so far that there was no hope of getting to it to rectify it before the race. So about a half an hour before the race, he didn't even come out to do formation laps or anything. He gets the dreaded did not start. Also, non-classifiers. Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. We'll have to talk about that. Logan Sargent in the Williams. We will also talk about why he did that as well. P17, Liam Lawson. P16, Nico Hulkenberg. P15, Yuki Tsunoda. P14 was Kevin Magnussen. And P13, last of the non-lapped finishers, was Alex Albon in the Williams. All right, so let's just rip the Band-Aid right off. Lap 1 incident between Mercedes teammates George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, and Max Verstappen was kind of the observer of it, but maybe the cause of some of it as well. Cody, you want to take us through it? And then what was your thought on the incident itself?
So Lewis Hamilton gets a great start off the line, goes to the outside, trying to make a very strong and bold move around the outside of George Russell. And I would say more Hamilton's fault. He agreed after the race and after he saw the replay, but he pulls in on the front of George Russell. They both spin out. Hamilton is out on the spot, and Russell continues on. And, you had the stuff going on over the radio where Hamilton's like, I just got wrecked by my teammate, and George Russell being like, what the hell's going on? Later on, he says, yeah, I'm sorry for what happened. Apparently sees the replay as he's going around on the track and says, you know what? No, I'm not sorry. That was his fault. And it turned out to be a little comical, I guess. But yeah, definitely, I guess always a bit of a cringy yet exciting moment whenever teammates collide. And, everyone has been wondering if the, rivalry between Lewis Hamilton and George Russell would eventually, start to ramp up, spill over, reach a boiling point. And we saw a little bit of that in Japan, where Hamilton looked like he might have been running Russell off the track in some spots. And yeah, this time it was taken care of on lap 1. Messy. Props to Lewis though for for admitting fault after the race, after he'd had time to cool down. Those guys, they're so passionate and heated in the moment that they're going to say stuff maybe they don't mean. They don't have all the information yet. They only have so much room to see around in those cars too, so they're not going to have the whole story. And so he apologized after the race, and good on him for it, because it's okay to be an 8-time champion and still, or 7-time, excuse me, not 8 yet. 7-time champion. Oh no, what have I done?
Right.
Not yet. 7-time champion. It's still okay for him to make mistakes and admit to it.
One of the greatest of all time, regardless of the number. Who is going to go down as one of the best of all time? If no ifs, ands, or buts on any of that. But in terms of this, the important thing to note was that Lewis was a soft tire starter, which was shocking to me, because didn't we learn our lesson in the sprint? So Lewis does the only thing that he can do in that type of situation. He's looking at the guys around him, and he's like, even before the race, going, I might be on the wrong tire here, guys. Was that really a good decision? I don't know. All right, here we go. I guess I'm lining up. So the only thing he could do was to try to do the thing that Russell couldn't do, get to the lead, build as big of a gap as he could in those first few laps, and either use that tire until it expired and then jump into the pits and then try to use your more longer-lived tires. Or, the other part of it was, of all of the people who got, botched by this tire allocation rule, he was the one that was probably in the worst position. So, maybe they were just trying to make, lemonade out of a lemon, because I don't think he was going to have a very tough strategy race ahead of him anyway. So he tries to make the move on the outside, and it does turn into 3-1, doesn't go. Russell ends up in the sandwich. Amazing that Russell didn't incur more damage. Amazing that Russell's able to get back to the pits on a puncture. They're able to change the tire, change the front wing, and he's pretty much good to go after that. His pace after that was pretty darn good. And because there was safety cars and everything else, he's able to catch back up and really didn't lose out as much as one would have thought. Lewis, like you said, to his credit, takes responsibility for it. I think every commentator that I've heard describe this incident has kind of said that's more on Lewis than anybody else. So I think we will kind of leave it there, leave the drama kind of there, and say, okay, it's probably more on Lewis than anybody else, and move on to the next. Just unfortunate, because it looked like Lewis might have been on for a decent day. There was definitely pace in the Mercedes car this weekend. That was for sure. All right, so we will move from the back markers. Anything other thoughts on the back markers before we move forward?
A couple here. We did have pretty much a voluntary retirement from Logan Sargent. I guess he had been suffering from the flu recently, and had been recovering, but as we're going to get into probably once we get through the field here, the conditions that the drivers faced during this race were awful. I've never seen so many of the drivers look just completely beat and exhausted after the race, saying that it was one of the hardest races they've ever done, that they were passing out at certain parts of the track. Some drivers had to go to the medical center after the race. Very rough conditions, and something that I think Formula One and the FIA will have to look at going forward. But Sargent, props to him for trying to, continue to race, even though he was recovering from illness in these awful conditions. But he eventually did come over the radio and say, look, guys, I'm really not feeling well. And the team said, do what you got to do, and he tried to fight it a little bit longer, but eventually probably I guess I would say completely the right decision for him to voluntarily throw in the towel, say, look, I can't do it. It's too much. And that was okay. So he voluntarily retires from the race. Respect to him for that. Realizing that it wasn't worth it, and the limits of his body in that situation.
Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with heat stroke, you saw a lot of the early signs of it, I think, in this race. You don't want to see it beyond that, because what goes beyond that is you pass out. And had he passed out going into one of a corner, I don't even want to think about what could have happened if that ends up happening. And look, between Logan Sargent and Esteban Ocon, who did apparently throw up in his helmet, Logan, who almost threw up in his helmet, several other drivers. I mean, Oscar Piastri coming out of the car in the cool down room, laying on the floor, not wanting to move and even go get his trophy. Crazy. Lots of things we will talk about with these conditions. We talked about it in the weather. Remember when we did the weather and I said, I can't remember ever reading highs for 3 days over 100 degrees? Part of these sessions... well, and part of these sessions, like the FP1 and the sprint shootout, the sun was still out. Even if it's going down, it's still, okay, it's not 102, but it's 98, 97, and apparently 73% humidity, dew points in the upper 70s. That's Amazon jungle dew point. This is like what are we doing? This is crazy. We're lucky nobody passed out. We are truly lucky that these drivers are as fit as they frickin' are, and nobody actually ended up passing out. I've seen it here, and I watched it in MotoGP recently when they went to India, which was another example of they actually had to shorten the race because they were afraid people were going to drop. And one of the contenders for the championship, Jorge Martin, was about ready to pass out on his bike. He came in, he took his helmet off. I've never seen a human being like that shade of red. It looked like the back of your wall. His face looked like that, and they're throwing water on him. Fernando Alonso in his car screaming, "Can you throw water on me? Because I'm burning up in the car." One, don't tell me these drivers aren't athletes, number one. Two, don't tell me all these guys don't have want to or desire, because Logan, knowing what the situation is, knowing that all he really wanted out of this weekend was a clean finish, not able to get it, had at least the sense of mind to say, this ain't worth it. It ain't worth dying for. And kudos to him. But what are we doing? This is as close to the limit as I've ever seen. The only other example of this I can think of is there was a race at Circuit of the Americas when World Endurance went there for a 6-hour race. And it was in September. I don't know if you've looked at the weather recently in Austin, but up until maybe about a week ago, the highs in Austin were over 100 degrees every single day, even and only going down to the upper or to the low 90s, upper 80s at night. And so, yeah, that race finished in the dark eventually, but I think there were Alex Brindle put out a tweet that said there were 13 drivers from that event that ended up going to the hospital with heat stroke. That's on the limit. This was as much on the limit. And if this ends up showing a spotlight on just the extreme temperatures that these drivers are facing, then that's a good thing, because hopefully we never do this again, because this was way too close to a really bad thing happening.
Yeah, I agree. If Formula One continues to race in Qatar, they're going to have to sort something out to make this less of, I don't even know the right way to put it, less taxing on the bodies of the drivers. Last little bit.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I was going to go to a different thing for the Mac breakfast. All you.
Oh, it's no good to be racing in an oven. And that's what it kind of felt like.
The last thing I was going to get to for the back markers was a little bit of a clumsy mistake from Nico Hülkenberg. And I guess it could happen to anybody, but with Carlos Sainz not starting the race, his grid spot was supposed to be open. However, Nico Hülkenberg maybe just had a little bit of a lapse in attention and focus and pulled up into Carlos Sainz's grid spot. That is a big no-no. Pretty much ruined any hope that he had of getting a good finish out of the race, because he got, I believe it was a 10-second stop-go penalty So yeah, took all the wind out of his sail before the lights even went out, and you got to feel for him. I mean, I got to imagine they even show him sitting in the car. He pulls up into that grid spot,
Looking
and he's kind of
around.
looking around. He's like, "Wait a minute, no, this isn't
Uh-oh.
right."
Oh, no.
Yeah,
And you
that's
can't
gotta be
reverse.
wild.
There's nothing you can do. Like,
Yep.
he would have been better. He would have been better off feigning like the car had a problem and going like this at that point, because maybe then he can start from the pit lane, which might be less of a foul. I mean, yeah, it's just there's lit up boards, which when we go to Coda in a couple weeks, we'll see them, that'll have the driver's number and the name underneath it. And yeah, he just pulled up and, did the race car driver thing. Oh, we all line up now. Well, okay, there's a spot. I'll take it. Oops, too late. Oh wait,
Oopsie.
I'm not this far up. So yeah, unfortunate. So whatever good result may have been on for Haas, and that actually proves to be significant, because as we'll talk about in just a minute, Haas's main rival for their position in the constructors had a much better day, as it turned out. So I will now transition us into the midfield, and we'll start with P12, that being Pierre Gasly, who would have finished in the points, except he ran afoul of the track limits not once but twice. P11, Lance Stroll, also ran afoul of the track limits, and that cost him a 5-second penalty. P10, Sergio Perez, also ran afoul of the track limits and cost himself 2 5-second penalties. And that promoted Zhao Guanyu to P9 in the Alfa Romeo and Valtteri Bottas in the other Alfa Romeo to P8. Good weekend results for the Alfa Romeo boys. Look at that. So they actually will overtake Haas when we get to our constructor points in just a minute. P7, Esteban Ocon. P6, Fernando Alonso, who had a very interesting race, finding new places on the Qatar circuit that we didn't know existed. P5, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Probably the only Ferrari. At least he scored points. Decent day, I think, for them. P4, the man on the move. To the back and back again. George Russell in the Mercedes. So he had some trials and tribulations. We talked about the lap 1 incident for him, but definitely some pace in that Mercedes car to, one, get through that, not enough damage to hurt anything, and then to come through the field basically 3 times.
Yeah, George Russell was the man. He took that first lap crash. He said, "You know what? I'm just going to move on from this. I'm going to do the best I can." Did have some help from safety cars, help him close the field back up. Or close the field back up after he had the work done on his car. But yeah, just cranked through the field, made it all the way back up to P4 by the end. About as good as you could hope for a recovery drive. And ends up just, I guess he finished in terms of time quite a ways off from the podium, but making up very good points. So very good race for George Russell, despite what happened at the beginning.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say completely the opposite for Sergio Perez. He does get a solitary point out of the Grand Prix, but man, he is struggling hard, and it's painful to watch. And he had enough track limit violations for 2 time penalties, and I cannot imagine how it must feel to come out of that race with 2 time penalties for all the track limit violations. Your team came over the radio and said, essentially, you got to stop doing this. It's ruining our race. And then your teammate, Supermax, somehow got out of the Grand Prix with, I believe, 0 track limit violations. So that's just rubbing salt in the wound. I for a while was thinking that all the talk about that Sergio Perez could somehow lose his seat for next season was kind of, just talk. He is still second in the points after all, and he does still have 2 Grand Prix wins in the year after all. But his performance has just been so poor over the last several race weekends that it's getting very hard to defend him at this point. And I'm starting to think that, there could be a little truth to that argument, that maybe especially if he doesn't end up finishing P2 in the points come the end of the year, Red Bull really could say that that's not good enough and you're out of your seat, despite the fact that you're under contract. Any thoughts on it?
Well, we've seen Red Bull, they do what they want with the driver lineup. It's a you're up or you're out mentality. That's been the case for the longest time. And that's why I continue to call that second seat the best poison pill that's in, or the double-edged sword, because this is what you get. You get to drive the best car on the grid. Congratulations. You have the opportunity to win races. Congratulations. If you are not consistent and keeping with that other guy who's on that other level, and oh, by the way, we give all the preference to, even though we don't really do that, we don't really say that. Yeah, it's such a hard thing. And the fact that he's been able, I think, to do it for as long as he has, he's been the only one since Max has gone into that Red Bull seat. Checo's been the only one to even make it through an entire year, right? Or I think Daniel maybe made it through 1 year and then he left. And then we saw Albon didn't make it through a year. We've seen other guys come into that seat and not make it through a year and get replaced. So yeah, I mean, this is what you get. And I think the harbinger of being in that seat comes for everybody, and it looks like it's coming for Sergio Perez, which is very unfortunate. I like Checo a lot. I think he's in the hall of very good. I don't think he's a great driver, but I think he's a very good, solid driver on his day, one of the better on the grid for sure. But I think we're seeing that constant pressure. It just wanes on you, and that's, this is one of the reasons why I said I know they're targeting Lando Norris. Everyone has said that they're targeting Lando Norris. And if I'm Lando Norris, I say, why would you want to go to that? Why would you want to put yourself there, especially now, given the form of the car that you're in? Doesn't add up to me. And I don't know. Maybe Liam Lawson's the next wonderkin who they can try to put in and see if he'll last there. But I don't see them. If it's not Sergio, I think the fallback has to be Lawson. I don't think they're going to put Daniel back in that car, at least for next year, because we know Lando's under contract. So let's assume that's not happening. Okay, so what are their options? They're stuck between Liam Lawson and Daniel Ricciardo, right? I think they would give it to Lawson based on the fact that I think they like him more right now than Daniel.
Yeah, even though we saw that Lawson, is still a rookie and is subject to rookie-like weekends like we saw this time. I think he's, the hot young talent, at least in Red Bull's camp right now. And I really, really thought, and still somewhat think, that they want to keep Perez around because he is good enough most of the time. He is good enough to, at this point, Max is pretty much securing the Constructors' Championship by himself. But he is good enough to flesh out the rest of that team, get a couple wins, some podiums, hopefully finish second in the championship. And I think Red Bull might even still be of the opinion that that is good enough for them. They probably don't even want right now a second Max Verstappen in that other seat. They're happy letting Max do Max things and be Superman and just have someone who's good enough in that second seat. But it's starting to degrade into, is he actually doing good enough? And do they think that someone else could do better?
Yeah, and time will tell. I still think watch the social medias, whatever you want to call them, after that week, after the last race of this season. If there's going to be some sort of a shock announcement, that's where I think it would be coming from, if it's going to happen. So we shall see. Now, maybe they let him test and start the season next year, and if his form is back, maybe it's a different story. I don't know. I'd like to think that he's I would hope for his sake that he's built up enough goodwill to at least have that opportunity afforded him, to at least see out the contract that he's got. I always think that's dirty when you extend, like they extended him, and now they're going to rip that from under him. And I don't think that's fair. But that would be something that's so Red Bull. This is what they do. It's their whole mantra is pressure, 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 and it looks like he's succumbing. Unfortunately, it looks like at least the form would suggest that he's succumbing to that pressure, and he's doing some kind of crazy move, dumb moves. We saw the thing in Japan. That move was never going to happen. You could even give him part of the blame if you wanted to look at the sprint crash and say, all right, was that maybe part on you? Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's not looking good for Checo right now. And the only hope is that he's coming to the continent where he tends to go a little bit better. He's got his home race in a couple weeks, and maybe he can show some good form. The championship being done, maybe Max gets out of the way, and let's, because the Mexican crowd will go absolutely insane if he happens to bring home a race win in front of his home crowd. So that's at least kind of where I'm going. Yeah. All right. So transitioning into the podium, P3, Lando Norris in the McLaren. P2, Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren, having the weekend of his young F1 career. And of course, Thanos, the inevitable, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, coming home P1, 2023 Drivers' Champion, now fully coronated. As if you needed any other confirmation, he wins the main race on Sunday. A couple things I wanted to get in on the podium. Obviously, we talked about in the qualifying way back when, both McLarens were kind of out of position, right? So Lando's in P10, Oscar's in P6. Well, that whole kerfuffle on lap 1, I watched it from Oscar's onboard, and the Red Sea parts. The inside is open, and Oscar says, "Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you getting out of my way." P6 to P2 in one lap. And oh yeah, Lando goes from P10 to P6. I think overall, if you're looking at it from a McLaren perspective, Lando had a lot more work to do. May have been slightly overall faster. We'll never know. We should probably talk about the hold station order. I know there's a fan email about that. Maybe we'll save this to then. But a very good day for the McLaren team. An awesome day points-wise. An awesome weekend because they take 14 points out of the sprint. They take P2 and P3 here. They take like 38 points on the weekend. They close the gap now. Preview of the constructor standings went from like 49 to 11. So now it feels like it's not, I finally can say this now, not if, but when. Amazing turnaround, amazing run of form. We thought they could go well here. They clearly were the second fastest team. Maybe in certain stints, a little bit quicker than Max, but not entirely. Obviously, Max had it under control. But this was, on margin, one of the closer finishes we've actually had because it's under 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm. It's a bit of an interesting race for seeing the car potential too, because since all drivers had to pit frequently for tires and were required to do so, and this might have contributed partly to the stress on their bodies as well, was I think a lot of the drivers were out there driving these like they were qualifying laps because they knew, oh, well, we're going to just, have to get new tires anyway. So let's just wear these into oblivion until they don't wear anymore. And you had a lot of drivers going around doing, fastest lap after fastest lap. There were a lot of trades for fastest lap approaching the end of the race. They were not, in our predictions game, I was so close to getting the whole podium. Just had McLaren's backwards. But yeah, they really weren't that far off from Max. We see here Oscar Piastri within 5 seconds of Max, in a race where strategy probably didn't factor in, quite as much as other races, since everyone was kind of forced to do the same thing and only could choose the tire compound. yeah, I have high hopes for McLaren going forward. Do you think we're going to see a race win before the end of the year?
I have still said our race live, the U.S. Grand Prix, is going to be one of their best shots. This was probably on book car, trends and what suits their car, the best track that they were probably ever going to have, because all the corners were high and medium speed. Where was the low speed corner here? You couldn't find one. Coda does have a couple low speed corners, so we'll see. But I still think that track will suit them just fine. Thank you very much. So I am nothing but excited for what we're going to see. And I haven't even mentioned world record pit stop, 1.80 seconds, shattering Red Bull's 1.82 second record on Lando's second stop there. I knew it was fast. I saw the graphic come up and I went, whoa! And even the Alfa Romeo mechanic looking at it does one of the, woo, that was fast. So yeah, look at that. Look at what the boys went and did. And it was interesting enough on at least the international feed. Chet Kravitz was kind of going, well, they hadn't had the best pit stops. And then they dropped the 1.8 second on you as if to say, we heard you, Ted, and here we come. But even that one, those second stops for both cars were amazing. 1.8 for Lando, 2.1 for Oscar. In those really hot conditions, just goes to show, yeah, this is a team that looks like now the mechanics believe it. You can tell that, this is the type of stuff. This is how you start to build momentum moving forward in a team. I never thought I would see it this season, and I'm ecstatic about it. So, yeah, bring on Coda, and I will be. If that happens, you're going to hear me on the international feed, because you could have heard me when Oscar won the sprint. You're definitely going to hear me. I'll find a microphone and yell something into it.
I'd love to see the look of elation on your face with a win in Coda where we're there. It'd be fantastic.
I'm still dreaming. I keep thinking all it has to take is something weird to happen to Max. And the race after the championship gets wrapped up is usually the crazy nutty one. So who knows? And it's going to be a sprint weekend, so we're going to have all sorts of craziness all over again. And hopefully none of the tire issues that go along with it. But to say excited is an understatement for me. One thing I want to say about Oscar's weekend, and there's a couple of people who've asked me kind of these questions. Do you think Oscar is overtaken or is more talented than Lando? I don't think that story is written, number one. But the one thing that I think Oscar has in his toolbox that Lando still needs to work on is a concept of close. Oscar knows how to close a show. Lando is still kind of learning how to close a show. Lando can get there. Everyone forgets, as long as he's been in F1, he's still the youngest or second youngest on the grid right now. So, I mean, it's still crazy. You're still talking about a kid who's got a lot of development that's going to happen in his racecraft and stuff. But Oscar just has this calm about him and the ability to not let the moment get too big for him that I think will serve him very, very well as pressure mounts and as opportunities come for him. Saw that in the sprint for sure. Saw that when Lando got close to him, because you were talking about trading fastest laps. It was hilarious for about maybe 8 laps to go. Lando would set a fast lap, then Oscar would set a fast lap. Then Lando would set another fast lap, then Oscar would set a fast lap. And I've never seen that happen amongst teammates for a long time. So that was fun to watch.
Agreed.
And of course, then there's Max. What else can you say? Maybe it was the only thing that made it kind of interesting was the semi-slow stop at the end. That tire just didn't stay stuck long enough from my perspective. But I guess it maybe made the result a little bit closer. But I think Max had it in hand, even though the McLarens were really quick.
Yeah, he was pretty much flawless throughout that race. Like I was saying before, no track limit violations. Kept it clean. kept it fast, pretty much spent the entire time out front. It was a little goofy to see during that slow pit stop where they tried to do that really cool like camera spin thing, and the car didn't go anywhere. So it was just kind of like, this is awkward. Just wait a minute. Oh, there it goes.
This isn't how this is supposed to work. What are we doing? Oh well.
Yeah, they should have done that over at the McLaren pit stall, but yeah.
Well, now
overall,
they'll do that, and now they won't replicate that time ever again, probably, because that's hard to do. I mean, that is very hard to do.
Just goes to show too that now that even though Max had already clinched the championship, that that's not enough for him. He wants to just win everything. So I would not be surprised if he does not let up for the rest of the season and tries to go for everything that's left. And I would be really excited to see him do so. I love seeing records broken, and he is well on his way to breaking so many this year.
That is true. He has been the man this season. Whether you like him, you don't like him, you got to respect him. Max Verstappen, the man of 2023 for sure in F1. All right. So we have now gotten through all of the sessions. Hooray. We are going to take a quick break. We are going to re-rack. I'm going to get some liquid for my vocal cords. We will come on back. We will recap where the points are. We'll open it up to your takes on this race, the fan email segment. We'll give out some awards. We'll look at some predictions. And then we'll start to set the stage. It's only a week away before we fly out in 7 days, bro. I'm loving it. The USGP beckons. So come on back and we will get into all of it. Welcome back in. This is season 5, episode number 34 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2023 Qatar GP race review. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just wrapped up all of the sessions from the Qatar race, and there were plenty of them. That's what we get with a sprint weekend. So we've gotten through that. We will now take a look at where the drivers and the constructors' standings shake out after this round. Cody, as we're apt to do, if you do the drivers, I will take the team, sir, so have at it.
All right. Your 2023 Formula One drivers' standings as of the Qatar Grand Prix. In first place, and officially not going anywhere, Max Verstappen with Red Bull with a whopping 433 points, looking like he could become the first ever driver to eclipse the 500 mark, which really would be something. In second place, still, his teammate, Sergio Perez, holding on to that second place spot for keeping the Red Bull 1-2 with 224 points. In third place, Lewis Hamilton, still keeping a small margin in third place for Mercedes with 194 points. He is just 11 points still ahead of Fernando Alonso, who is in fourth place driving for Aston Martin with 183. Carlos Sainz is still the top Ferrari driver. He's in fifth place with 153 points. And just behind him in sixth place, his teammate Charles Leclerc with 145 points. Lando Norris continuing to make great strides in that McLaren. He is in seventh place with 136 points. So only 9 points now behind Charles Leclerc. Only 4 points behind him in eighth place, George Russell driving the other Mercedes with 132 points. Oscar Piastri making a great name for himself now in that second McLaren car. He's in ninth place with 83 points. And rounding out the top 10 is still Lance Stroll driving the Aston Martin, and he has 47 points.
The statistical anomaly, given how many people are right on that P10 spot, there's three, the P11, 12, and 13, I think the difference is like 3 points. So how that's happened is kind of amazing. But anyway, I'll leave that there. I do think we're going to see some changes in this order probably before the end of the season. Interesting that Lando's creeping up on Charles Leclerc. I wish I would have taken James's bet all those months ago after testing where he said, I'll give you Lando versus Charles straight up. And I said, what universe are you in? Apparently this one.
Yeah,
just strange.
Hindsight 2020.
This is why I don't bet. This is exactly why I don't bet, because I'd be bad at it. But anyway, looking at the constructors' standings in a league of their own, in a universe of their own, Red Bull Racing Powertrain, 657 points. I think at the end of the season, we're going to look at it and say, what's the total number of points you could get and subtract? And that's how you're going to get down to where they actually are. Amazing. Just amazing stuff. P2, Mercedes, 326 points. P3, Ferrari, 298 points. The battle for P4, if not, but when, it seems. Aston Martin still maintain it with 230 points, down to 11 points on the hard-charging McLaren team, 219 points for them. Alpine, P6, they check in with 90 points. P7, Williams, 23 points. P8, a change in the standings here. Alfa Romeo up now to 16 points, 4 clear of P9. Haas, they remain on 12 points. The Coda upgrades for that team can't come soon enough. We'll have to see what they can do next round. P10, Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, they remain on 5 points. All right. Enough of our takes on the Qatar weekend. We now will open it up to your takes on the weekend. It's our favorite segment, the fan email segment. Cody, it is your time to shine this weekend, so take it away.
All right. Our first email comes from a frequent contributor. Thank you, Rachel Fleming. And she says, so that was interesting, let's just say. Something has to give next season because this doesn't put F1 in a great light regarding the tires. Was this an FIA error, or should Pirelli take most of the blame here because they have some data from 2021, even though the cards have changed significantly? I would also like to note the following. Can't Max win a title in a normal way? He didn't need to start the actual race to win the title. Talk about being confusing. But Lewis Hamilton is 100% to blame for what happened, talking about the crash with George on lap 1. He could have easily taken out not just George, but Max as well. Oh, darn, that would have been a shame. That was really quite poor from the 7-time world champion. She got the number right. At least one of us did. And credit to George for coming back and getting 4th place. But what do you guys think of the rumors coming out of Lawrence Stroll selling Aston Martin and he and Lance leaving F1? I would not be sorry to say goodbye to Lance, especially his attitude this weekend. Yes, he has been awful, and the pressure on him is massive. But to act like a spoiled brat is not doing him any favors. Anyway, if you guys are going to Coda, have a great time. We are, and we will, I assure you. Thank you so much for the email, Rachel. I agree that Lewis was to blame for that accident. He could have taken out more than just the two of them. But, I mean, that's just racing. It happens sometimes, and, he paid the price for it. He did not finish the race. It was the first Grand Prix all season where he did not score any points. That leaves now Max as the sole driver who has scored points in every Grand Prix so far, and for that matter, every sprint for him. Great job with George getting back to 4th place. I do think it is pretty funny that Max seems to have really oddball title wins every year now. We had obviously the 2021 show. We had last year Japan. Did he not? We're not really sure. No one's really sure. And yeah, now this one in front of a small crowd on the sprint. But something tells me it probably doesn't bother him too much because he's a 3-time champion.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to matter to him. And kudos to Rachel. She did put in an amendment to her comment. She said, nice to see Lewis apologizing on Twitter after seeing the footage. So we wanted to make sure that Rachel said that to Lewis as well. Mm-hmm. But to her points, yes, very confusing weekend and kind of an odd thing. We talked a little bit about the tires earlier. I don't know if it's on Pirelli to assume that they're going to have a race where they're going to see this type of curbing with a new surface with this kind of heat.
Yeah, it's pretty extreme conditions for the tires.
Triple whammy. And so I don't, as much as I want to get on Pirelli for doing bad things or not being prepared, it felt in the moment like, okay, maybe somebody skipped a step. Maybe they could have done some sort of test or something around here, but they've had tests at this track before. Oscar Piastri ran 160 some laps around this track and had no issues. I think you had the triple whammy of the new surface, the extreme temperatures, and the curbing, all of which doesn't bode well if you're a tire trying to stay together on this lateral load, which was just insane. So I don't really want to blame Pirelli for it that much. I think they get a pass, and I think they did the best thing they could have given what they found. It was odd. It was weird. We did all get through it. I don't think it materially affected any of the race results to a significant standpoint. So, okay, I'll give them a pass here.
Yeah. As opposed to 2005, we did have a relatively normal race. So, yeah, I agree with you that it was about the best that we could hope for, considering what they were facing.
The cars outside apparently do not agree with me because all of the alarms as the train goes by are now going off in the background. So I've pissed off the universe by saying that, but I'm going to stand by that. But anyway, as to your point about Lewis Hamilton, I think, like I said, when we talked about it in the race review, I agree. I think he was more at fault than anybody else there. He's trying to make hay on the outside. That's not where the grip was because the clean line was such that it really went from inside to outside of that corner. And he ended up on the not grippy part and probably didn't have as much control as he thought he was going to have. 3-1 doesn't go. Boom. And, you admitted that, Lewis said it was his fault. So I think we all kind of agreed with that. Rumors of Lawrence Stroll selling. I have not seen much of that. I've seen
like little stuff here and there, but it's like I don't think I've seen anything that's like well founded, like with like strong evidence. There's we've heard the rumors of Lance going to play tennis and Lance doing this and that. I've heard the little bits about Stroll selling the team because I guess people have been saying that he really bought the team to give Lance an opportunity to succeed. Who knows if that's true? I think he probably did it to make money because that's what he's really good at. But we'll just have to see. I would think with the strides that the team made this year, that it would be unwise to sell it now, especially since it appears having a team in Formula One right now is the time to have it because holy crap, they're making so much money.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of, it would be a very odd time for him to sell considering he just sank and spent all that money on building that nice, sparkly new factory that they've just moved into. And now he's just going to take his ball and go home. That would be really weird considering, especially since we talked about in the preview, Aston Martin now is going to go into WEC. They're going to go into other places. Do you eventually see Lance call it a career on F1 and maybe have a decent sports car career? That, I think, is a rumor that may be worth floating. Now, the team has already come out and kind of said, that's not what we're going to do. We've seen how fungible contracts can be and how drivers can shift from one place to another. Keep an eye for that. We'll have to see. That Valkyrie program is like 2 years away. I'm pretty sure Lance will be racing in F1 next year. After that, time may tell. We know that next year there's a lot of contracts up, and I'm wondering if his is one of them. I'd have to check, but interesting to see. So, no, I had not heard the Lawrence Stroll sell rumors as yet, but we'll monitor it like we always do, and if we happen to see something that looks credible, we'll pass it along. All right, next up on the docket, Cody, is our buddy, the Formula.
Yeah, another frequent contributor. Thank you, the Formula. That sounds a little weird to say that way. Qatar GP is a wrap. It wasn't covered much, but that was a good result for Bottas and Joe, given their normal form this year. Also, I'm sure you've already covered this by the time you read this on the show, but how do you feel about McLaren ordering Lando to stay in P3? Actually, we really didn't cover it that much. Ultimately, that is what happened, but I don't agree with the logic there. Still a great result for McLaren. Also, I think mandatory multiple pit stops would be great long-term. Let these guys push more often. All right, a couple bold points there. Andy, what are your thoughts on the McLaren order to Lando to remain in P3?
It very much felt like a half-hearted one. And they didn't really do it until after the last pit stop. And Lando, to his credit, drove his ass off trying to make it not even going to be a question, where he just said, you know what, if I'm ahead after the pit stop, I'm ahead after the pit stop. I didn't race him. The laps he put in for those, the 2 laps before they both pitted and the 1 lap after that were very, very strong laps. They were trading purple sectors between the 2 of them. And Oscar had just that little bit to keep the margin. And when they came out, they even said it on the broadcast because they were both going to be on the hard tire. It was going to take Lando a lap to get that tire to fire up. And by then, I think he'd already lost, basically 2 seconds. And that was pretty much all she wrote. Now, then they come on with the team order there. Here's my thought on it. In that position, you got to remember where they are big picture-wise. They are chasing down Aston Martin. It looks like they're going to now get there. The math now is definitely in their favor given the form that they're on, which was something that even 2 or 3 Grand Prix ago, I said, well, that's off in the distance. This is kind of a pipe dream. I'd love to see it, but they'd have to keep scoring, and Aston Martin would have to keep slipping. And, well, look what they've done. They've kept scoring almost maximum points other than race wins. They took, I think, more points out of this race than even Red Bull did. If you combine the sprint and the Grand Prix, I think there was not a team that scored more points this weekend than McLaren. So now you've got that into it. If they had actually caught Aston Martin and they're ahead, given where they both were, I think maybe it's a different answer. I think right now that prize money is the carrot. That's what we're going for. That's what we're doing. They're going to have to address this down the line. There is not a doubt in my head that this is going to be something that's going to continue to come up. They're going to continue to meet each other. Maybe they're on different strategies. Maybe they're not. Now here they had to be all on the same strategy. So you couldn't play that card. You couldn't say give it to Lando because he was clearly that much faster because he was on a different tire strategy. You can't shell it that way. If they let him go, and God forbid and the other thing that happened is I think management got spooked when they watched what happened to Mercedes because it could go that quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they kind of came on and said, we're going to diffuse this before it even becomes a thing. Hold station. Let's not race each other. Lando, to his credit, and I've read articles by dude from Motorsport who's pretty plugged in, basically saying they're okay with drivers questioning the call like that. They want that if it's able to happen. And Lando questioned it. They came back. They said, okay, we'll think about it. And then they came back, no, we're really saying hold station. We've analyzed it. This is what we want. Lando gets, I think, within 1.2 seconds and then comes back on the radio and says, this dirty air is too much. I'm not going to kill the tires. He eventually then came along with that at the end. They don't play that in the race. Now, if you're the F1 director, your job is to build drama out of something where the guy in front is sometimes 30 seconds in front. You're going to pick and choose what messages you play and what ones you don't. They didn't, I don't know. I know they didn't play the Lando, this dirty air is too much. I'll just ride home. They didn't play that part of it. So he looks like he's pushing an issue that really was kind of closed there at the end. Do I think this is something that's going to come up? Yeah, it's going to have to be something they're going to have to figure this out. Whether it's more of a Mercedes, whoever qualified farther up gets the preferential strategy, or you got to take it from the guy in the pit stops or something like that. I don't know, but I think there's going to have to be some sort of a protocol that's going to come out eventually because both of these guys are going to be right there if this car is as good as it looks right now.
I am a big fan of the just let them race side of it. I don't really get any kicks out of the I'm the faster car, let me pass, or the I just want to get the team a good result, let me stay in front. I hate it when drivers do that because it seems very artificial because usually you're making that argument because you just want the front spot, and you're trying to. It's like politics, You're just debating with the team why you should have the front spot, when really, ultimately, I think it should be. Can you outrace the other guy? Yes, okay, you get the front spot, but just be aware that there will be hell to pay if you wreck your teammate. But yeah, I can, in times like this when you're fighting for, a spot, a higher rung in the championship standings, which equates to more money. I can see the desire for the team to just keep the status quo and just come home with a really good result. Second and third is without beating Max, about as good as you're going to get. So yeah, they think they made in this case the right decision to just keep it safe and take the really good points. As for the mandatory multiple pit stops, I'm going to have to go with a hard disagree. I think Formula One has a pretty good thing going with the one mandatory pit stop with multiple tire compounds being required. I think that's a really good happy medium between having some requirements that all teams have to follow while still allowing a lot of variety for pit strategies. I think if you require more pit stops, the preferred strategy is going to start to become the only strategy. If you say you need to make 2 pit stops, you're going to see medium to hard or hard to medium. If you see 3 stops required, you're going to see medium, medium, soft, medium, medium, hard. Some variation of that. And you're not going to have these sometimes fun fringe strategies of trying to make it through a race on one stop, getting by on the hards for as long as you can. I really like the current variety of pit strategies that we have. So I think having more pit stops might not. It sounds like a good idea in theory, but I think in kind of what we saw in this race was, yeah, it's cool to make the drivers, let the drivers push really hard throughout the entire race, but it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for strategy to make a large difference in the race.
Yeah, and what you ended up with was kind of a true decanting of where the pace is at this track. You knew who was fastest, you knew who the second fastest was, you knew who the third fastest were, and are all the way kind of down the line. Take all the track limit penalties out of it for a minute. And if you just finish as to where they finished on the road, yeah, that result pretty much kind of sort of makes sense. To your point, Cody, I think what you would lose is somebody going on an off strategy that you wouldn't think of and making something last. Alex Albon going all but one lap in Australia was a heck of a thing. You wouldn't have that here. If you're going to try to mandate anything, now look, I think most times I tend to like a 2-stop race a lot more than a 1-stop race. And I've said many times on this show that once you put all 20 cars on the same compound of tire, it's probably not going to see a whole lot of overtaking unless your DRS is so powerful that it doesn't matter. What you had here was, if you liked overtakes, this was the race for you. There were lots and lots of overtakes. We had lots of overtakes in Miami. Would you say that that's a classic race? Probably not. If you're going to mandate anything, what I'd like to see is you have to run each compound of tire that gets brought. Because it would also then make Pirelli think twice about, are we too soft or are we too hard in certain places? I think that's, when we're in that medium range, I think there are some circuits that you could go one step softer and it would improve the show. And there are other circuits where you could go maybe one step harder and it would protect and you wouldn't see tire failures or something like that. Interesting that of all places, we didn't see the C0. Like, this was supposed to be the emergency tire that was supposed to get you through a race in these types of conditions, and they didn't bring it. So maybe that was the oversight, maybe not. I don't know that I want to see mandatory pits. I certainly don't want to see this ever again, where you were penalizing the teams that did better in qualifying by taking tire life and strategy out of their hands. And the teams had to make do kind of with what they had. If you're going to mandate something like that, I would rather see everybody have to keep or everybody get an additional set. Like if you make it to Q3 in qualifying, guess what? You get a clean, brand new set of soft tires to use in the race. Guess what? That's fine. And everyone then would have, hopefully, one set of hards, one set of new mediums, and one new set of softs. Then you can mix and play with your strategy, and hopefully there's enough tire fall off to where you're going to see multiple stops. I do think multiple stops are more exciting. I don't want to have it forced upon me. Like, this was fun for what it was. I don't know if I want to see this every week, though.
You mentioned the idea of using being required to use each tire compound during the race, and that had me think of some really goofy scenarios where we've seen it at some races where one tire compound, say like the hard, is just so bad, like no one's going to use it. And I think it would be really funny to see teams come in, put on the hard, go around for one lap, and then take it right back off again. I think that could lead to some funny situations.
And leave it to an F1 team to give a good rule or any rule and make it look ridiculous. That's kind of what they do.
Yep. Our last fan email comes from Dave Doherty, and he says, this is going to be a big step for McLaren from now on. They mean business. I think they're getting the best out of the car, and it looks like 2024 could be interesting. I, for one, agree. I think McLaren has made fantastic strides this year. They are now getting everything out of the new and improved car. And, I'm a little hesitant to have too high hopes for 2024 just because they looked like they were going to be hot stuff. Hot stuff was just on the horizon in 2021. And then 2022 happened, and they kind of slipped back down the order there for a little while. So fingers crossed that this is a sign of great things to come next year. Someone has to take the fight to Red Bull, or else it's going to stay really boring. I'm keeping my hopes tempered for now. How about you?
Oh, well, I've got my fan hat on, so I'm gonna answer this with a pure heart for a minute. This is why Red Bull is going after Lando as aggressively as they are, because they see what's coming. They know that driver lineup is incredibly strong. Welcome Oscar Piastri to the show. Lando Norris has always been a guy who's been worthy of being in the show. They know what's coming. If they can keep this all together, and it's hard to do, and can continue on the same path. Now, the difference between 2021 and 22 and 23 and 24, stable regs. This is not going to be a new car. It's going to be an evolution of this car. So the lessons learned this year will translate into the lessons learned next year. And they're getting the people who are currently on gardening leave are going to be joining at the beginning of the year. And now the wind tunnel's done. And now all the CapEx that they've put in place for all those years are coming in. This is how you build it. This is what it takes. It took 10 years of kind of sort of wandering in the desert, and now they're finally coming back out of it. This is the team that I fell in love with that was always kind of right there or almost right there. Can they hold on to it? That's the trick. We know Ferrari are going to do everything they can to get a little bit faster, and they're not that far off. Mercedes are the ones that I think could make the big step if they get. Now, you look at the pivot timeline to getting it good. I think Mercedes are the next ones that are in that line. What do they bring next year? How competitive are they relative to Red Bull and now relative to McLaren?
Mm-hmm.
We still know McLaren has a problem in tracks like Monza where it's all it's straights and low speed corners. Still doesn't really suit that car. They got to work on that a little bit. They got to work on tire life. We said it in Hungary. They can stay with Red Bull for 5, 10, 15, 19 laps. They can do that. Can they do it over a long haul, long distance? Haven't seen that yet. We've seen in those situations the McLaren car fall off in terms of pace, even though it's strong overall. over the course of one lap, can they actually get to and challenge Max when he's on, when he doesn't have a track limit deletion and he's just trying to bring it home? Haven't seen that yet. So there are things that they still have to work on, but they know. But when Andrea Stella goes on, and they asked him about next year, and he's got that kind of wry smile on his face, makes me excited, because here's the other thing. They've been honest about where they've been. They said at the beginning of the season, we're probably going to be bad, and they were. They weren't lying. And they weren't sandbagging when we said this upgrade package was going to be a game changer. Well, boom, here it was. So listen to what they're saying. If I'm believing what they're selling, and I have no reason not to right now, 2024 could be a hell of a year. I'm going to go into testing probably as more excited than I ever have been. Now, that's the thing. They have to get the test right. That's the one thing they haven't done in the last 4 years. Just get the test right. Come out of the gate. Be there. Do well in Bahrain for once. If they can do that, then I'm all the way on board, and then I become much more annoying.
Well said. All right. Yes. Thank you again to all of our fans who sent emails. We appreciate your contribution to the show. And now for one of my favorite parts, the weekly awards.
All right. I have promised not to go nuclear in my rubbish. So that's where we'll start. Even though there's way too much to talk about here, we haven't even talked about Andretti. We haven't even talked about that team principals presser that I really want to dissect. We may end up doing a special show on just that, the state of play, who I believe is telling the truth and who is lying to try to cover themselves. But that's the off-track stuff. So almost too many things to really talk about there because there's so many things that could get me fired up. And like I said, I don't want to go nuclear right now. It's kind of late. On the track, Lance Stroll, you cannot do that to your fellow employee there. That is unacceptable behavior in any workplace ever. Didn't want to see it. Don't want to see it ever again. To me, the proper response is he's been fined. There's a team statement. There's a way to handle that, and they just chose to kind of sweep it under the rug and said, "Oh, it's all good now. They've talked it out." Maybe, but that's not acceptable behavior in any light. So, for Lance Stroll on the track, and to Lawrence Stroll, who was the one comment that just stuck in my craw about the Andretti thing, just seems so short-sighted. I don't understand it. I do and I don't. And rising tides lift all boats, man. If the pie's bigger and your slice is a little smaller, you still get more pie than you did before. Why is this such a hard concept? Why do I feel like we're doing the whole prisoner's dilemma thing all over again, which is an academic exercise that drives me bonkers every time it comes up? Yeah, but anyway, that's kind of what I feel like about that. So to the Stroll family in general, into the bin with ye this weekend.
Well said. My rubbish award is going to go to those pesky pyramid curbs around the Qatar circuit for causing the absolute destruction of Pirelli tires and giving us those weird 18-lap restrictions on tire life. And it came on the eve of Pirelli's contract for being the sole supplier of Formula One tires being renewed for, what is it, until 2027? And I believe they also said that this is the end. Like, after 2027, they do not intend to pursue another contract with Formula One. They beat out Bridgestone this time, but they're not even going to be even a challenger next time. So come 2028, we will almost certainly see a new tire supplier for Formula One. But for the foreseeable future, it's going to be Pirelli's. And hopefully they can survive pyramid curbs better in the future. Or let's just get rid of the curbs. I think that would probably be the better solution.
What a concept. Maybe we ought not install these really freaking dangerous curves. Maybe the track limit should be part of on some of those curves. So we're not having this ridiculous track limit thing. Like, look, I don't have a better solution in my own head when it comes to this thing, but something's got to give. I don't agree with Helmut Marko on next to almost anything, but even when that dude is saying these track limit things are crazy and it ruins the show, it does. It ruins the show. I don't know how you fix it. I don't know what's fair, what's equitable. I'm happy to take ideas on it. I've tried to think about it where, like, to me, the only thing that makes sense is you have to have some sort of a mechanism that informs, especially in qualifying. I don't mind. I think the 3-strike system in the race tends to work okay. I like that because at least if you went over, it's not the end of your day for doing it once. Do it 4 times, okay, yeah. You've taken too many liberties. You've had one too many bites at the forbidden apple. Yeah, you get a punishment for that. Fine. But in qualifying, you have to have some way of like informing the driver immediately when that happens. Whether it's a buzzer that goes off or it's a different tone that goes off in the driver's head, because the driver then goes and finishes their lap, use up their tire, and oops, that whole thing is gone.
Mm.
It's no win. It's no win any way you slice it. And the show suffers because of it, because now you're looking at, well, where's the drop going to happen? Like we talked about it. Like, where's the drop? Here it comes. There it is. All right, fine. Next. But is that fun? Is anybody having fun with that? Like seeing, that was a great lap time, and poof, it's gone.
Gone.
Right. But anyway. See, I even got in your rubbish there. See, I told myself I wasn't going to go nuclear, and then I got into that.
You went like small nuclear device, like, stay away from hydrogen.
1 megaton.
I think
1
you did
megaton.
all right.
Only 1 megaton tonight. But anyway, we'll move into analysis paralysis. Cody, I'll let you go first.
All right. My analysis paralysis award goes to anyone who thought the softs would last through the entire sprint race. It seemed like a good idea for a couple laps. George Russell made it look like it was promising, and then they dropped off a cliff. And then extra analysis paralysis points to anyone who doubled down and went with softs during the Grand Prix, because you already knew that they weren't going to last because they couldn't last, 18, 19 laps when there were 3 safety cars. So anyone who thought that they were going to make a good strategy out of that during the Grand Prix was a little crazy, in my opinion.
More than fair point. But because of that first lap safety car, most of those guys got bailed out of that strategy. You never even got, they came in and they changed the tire. And at least then, they made it long enough to where the rest of their tires got them there. But yeah, so my analysis paralysis will literally go out to Pirelli, whose analysis literally paralyzed all of the strategy decisions. So I figured that was appropriate to hand it to Pirelli. Yes, it's safety. Yes, I understand that. Totally get it. Don't fault them overall, but it's analysis paralysis award. Your analysis literally stopped strategy. Got to give it to you here.
Going with the literal interpretation.
Love
it.
All right. Dark horse of the day. I'm going to give a shout out to Alfa Romeo Sauber, a team that had quietly kind of tried to bring some upgrades. They hadn't really worked. They didn't really show what they could do. Here, it felt like, even though, not flashing huge, but scoring good points in that battle for P8 in the Constructors is on because of that. Good job, Alfa Romeo. Both drivers in the points. Valtteri Bottas scoring points. Joe Granu scoring points. Solid day. Benefiting from some track limit violations of others, but hey, somebody makes a fumble and you got to fall on it. So good job, boys.
Yep, excellent job to them. My dark horse is it might be a little bit of a weird choice based on where he qualified, but I'm going with dark horse from the perspective of after that lap 1 collision. My dark horse was George Russell. After that spin, I did not see him making that good of a recovery drive and making it all the way back up to 4th place, scoring really good points despite what happened. So good on you, George.
Yep. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that either. I think that's both good candidates there. All right, so driver of the day, despite the fact that Max Verstappen walks away with the Drivers' World Championship, he's got many of those awards. We can probably rename it the "If Not Max, Then Who" award. But anyway, I'm going to give this out to the guy who I thought had the best weekend on the over the course of the whole weekend, and that was one Oscar Piastri. The dude showed up when it mattered. He's got that special closer's mentality, which is hard to find. We're seeing it. We see it in the 3 laps when Max gets into P2 and brings it to him, and Oscar just had that enough to eke that out and win it. And then in the Sunday race, P2 all the way, Lando's coming at him again, ekes it out just enough when he needs to. That's a special quality. Not everybody has that. Oscar Piastri beat World beat Oscar Piastri, driver of the day.
I agree with you 100%. Not only the driver of the day, but really the driver of 2 days. Oscar Piastri, winner of the sprint race, P2 in the Grand Prix. It doesn't get much better than that when you're racing against Max Verstappen. And I think he has more than proven his capabilities this year. Anyone who doubted him is silenced now. And I look forward to seeing him being a regular competitor at the front now that this McLaren is going to put him there.
You shall see. It looks like the future is very, very bright. All right. So we will move into our predictions game and the predictions results. This one is a squeaker. You scored 4 points, sir. You got the pole sitter, the quali lap time, the P1 podium, and the prop bet because Yuki Tsunoda did not outscore, or Liam Lawson did not outscore Yuki Tsunoda this weekend. I finished this weekend squeaking just enough in front with 5 points. I got the pole sitter, P1 on the podium, fastest lap time, fastest lap driver, and I actually got, because Logan Sargent is technically DNF, but he comes home in P18, the P18 bonus pick, and that is what gives it for me this weekend. I still think you're winning overall. I'll have to at some point go and retally all the points and put it into perspective, but it's nice that at least I'm giving you somewhat of a challenge now.
maybe Oscar really should have let Lando by.
That would have helped. You would have you would have wanted that. But anyway, so we come to the end of our agenda. That is all we have for you tonight. Next up, we come here, as in we're going to Austin, baby. We have, you and I are going. Deanna's joining us. We're all going to be in the same section. We're going to be right where, if you've seen our pictures before, you kind of know where we're going to be. So look back in our social media and go find the pictures I post. Come find us. Come say hi. We would love to have a conversation with anybody who wants to talk about us or to talk with us about anything. I'll be probably sporting one of the Outlap F1 shirts that I have. So we'll probably be around trying to promote the show, try to do good things. But we'll be around all weekend down in Austin. I can't wait. We're literally now 7 days away. 6 days, 8 hours till we get on the flight. Yeah, I'm counting down the minutes.
I am too, man. Having been to the race with you before, I can say that our seats are so good. I am very, very excited. We're going to be right at the start line, and it's going to be great. So, very much looking forward to it. Getting away and living my best Formula One life for a better part of a week.
Just enough to have a sample of what that life would be like. I don't know that I want to do it 23 weekends or 22 weekends or whatever it is. But for one weekend, I think we can have a good time. Unfortunately, you've gone a little out of focus there, so we're just going to go ahead and wrap it up. There he is. All right. But anyway, for Cody, it's been Andy. This is always fun to do. We will talk to you next, probably on site in Austin for the USGP preview. We'll talk about the Andretti stuff. We'll get into all that other good stuff. We've got lots to try to figure out and do with our time. So, yeah, we're going to check out for now. And as always, may all your laps be fast.